Going live.
Okay.
Good.
Hello, good morning, I
Good
guess. Good
day.
afternoon, good day,
Good
good evening,
time of
everybody.
existence whenever you see this.
Yeah,
Today is such an interesting topic. So before we begin, I'm Teresa, the founder of Holistic Clinic, and I run and work with a team of channelers.
We are the channelers. I'm
we are the
Sydney.
channelers.
Yes. We are only two of the channelers. There are others.
Yeah.
Yes. So who's Sydney?
Me.
Yes.
Hi. Yes, as I said, one of the channelers, and I also work as an artist and designer outside of this life here. So I've got my two lives. And Annie.
I'm in the healing section, or like branche, we would say. I work for a physiotherapy practice, and I'm a body worker, and I am also a healer at night and the weekends as a channeler. And yeah, I've been collaborating with this holistic clinic for over a year and a half now, and I love it. It's a really beautiful family, and yeah, we're just growing all together.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So today's topic is going to be something that I guess, very close to heart for many people. And we are going to talk about mental health and how is that linked to spiritual health. And I thought this is going to be an interesting topic because consistently in a lot of the cases that we work on, there is that linkage, there is that impact on each other. And very often when, people find it very difficult to draw a distinction between mental and spiritual health. So there's some level of discernment that people do need to pick up the skill to be able to go, okay, this is impacted by mental. Like there are actual mental cases, right? Because I'm trained as a hypnotherapist. And so there are actual mental things that we don't really have to bring in the spiritual side behind it. But of course, the cases that we're going to talk about today are those that are linked directly to spiritual energies or spiritual imbalances. Yeah. So I'm just going to bring up a few examples, and then we all can chime in and jump in. So the cases that we've come across, I will just name basically four. One of them are possession cases, where I think last week we talked a bit of possession. So possession cases absolutely impacts our mental wellness. Two, past lives. Some of the past lives that are unresolved, the trauma that came from past lives will definitely have some level of residue that plays out, that needs to play out because it's unresolved in this life, in your current incarnation, right? And then there is also, of course, curses, where it is something that we don't tend to talk a lot about, even though we did have to go in to solve some cases around there, but it is not something we generally talk about because we don't like to bring such kind of possibilities to our life. But yeah, we have come across that. And the fourth one, which is something that Sydney reminded me earlier before we jump on this call, is about your spiritual gift, that if we do not know how to hone in on the spiritual gift, it becomes like a spiritual curse. And we have come across all of them that. Anything else that you girls like to add?
Well, since we're going into the topic of mental health and spiritual health, I thought it'd be nice to just acknowledge some of the other factors outside of those two things. So I just wanted to say, for anyone with your mental well-being, there's also the physical factors that can be involved in our lives. So things like poor sleep, dietary factors over time can be big disruptors. So I want to just acknowledge things like those physical things that contribute as well. Since we're going to be talking about the spiritual things that contribute, I also want to acknowledge the other end of that spectrum, as well as acknowledging the mental health challenges that come from things like our past in this life, not necessarily from past life, but our past in this life, where we might have had experiences where our psyche came up with mental emotional strategies that don't serve us anymore, and then that becomes a mental health struggle or a challenge. So I just wanted to bring up those things as something to kind of paint the whole picture before we go into the specifics of the spiritual contributors.
Yeah, and I think definitely thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention the disclaimer that we are here to share our experiences as channelers, and we are not doctors. We are not psychiatrists. So this is just something that is a disclaimer to put out there, that all these things are just sharing with you of what we have come across and the experiences.
Yeah.
we
And we don't want to say that the things that the psychiatrists and doctors do are somehow like less important than what we do or anything like that. We're just trying to show another piece of the puzzle potentially. So if you are having anything that you're dealing with right now, do make sure to consider all of the potential contributing factors and get the support you need.
And definitely stress. A lot of times when people are stressed, that also impacts their mental health as well. Yeah, so now jumping into other things that, I mean, like not other things, some of the cases that are very memorable to us that impacted directly on our clients' mental wellness. Do you have any cases that jump out?
I mean, we have our ongoing case where we have a client who's dealing with schizophrenic symptoms, and of course they are going to see a psychiatrist and doctors and get those factors handled as well. But when we go in and we look at things on a spiritual level, we also do find a lot of stuff going on for this client. And we've worked on their situation, their case, through many, many different sessions now. So like a lot of different things have come up, from past life things to things about how the soul's structure is like, and all of these stuff. So
Yep.
yeah, let's
The
get into
particular case is absolutely very, very interesting because of how progressively we went in to take a look first at the past life. And then after that, we have the ability to then, not ability, we have the opportunity to go in to look at the soul structure, which is slightly different to a lot of our humans' soul structure. And then we had to go in to investigate how to address that and to allow it to be able to be functional in this incarnation on Earth. So that was a very interesting case. Yeah. But that sounds like a real serious case, right? Where we go to deal with a lot of the schizophrenia case, right? But there are also other mental things, mental wellness things that we also come across. For example, anxiety, depression, phobia, especially phobias. I remember the case of phobias for myself personally was actually phobia towards dogs. And now I'm such a big dog lover, right? So that was a past life where I was chased, like I went out hunting in my past life, right? And I was then chased by a pack of wolves. And I was so freaked out and I was hiding. And then I think I must have fell into a ravine. And so then the trauma continues to stay inside me, that when I was young, as long as I see dogs, I freaked out. There's no reason why I freaked out on the dog, but then I freaked out. And until my past life of that was healed, then I was then able to subsequently take steps towards getting close to a dog. And I'm such a big dog lover right now. So just little things like that, it actually does impact us. And having that phobia that doesn't make sense, unreasonable, it's just like there's no reason why I'm afraid of such a beautiful best friend of the humans or best friend of men.
right.
That I freaked out. Yeah. But we have also come across a lot of cases where they have other tiny phobias, like fear of height, fear of fire, and fear of like snakes. There's so many fears of snakes. I've come across so many cases of
I
yours.
mean, that makes sense in terms of in human history.
Yeah,
Humans overall, we've had a lot of bad run-ins with snakes. And I think that's one of the things with even your story, right? It's not that there was something that happened in this life to you specifically,
yeah,
with dogs that made you afraid of them. It's just like, where did this come from? I don't know why I'm so scared of it. And that can be one of the indications that there's something to look at on a spiritual level, on a past life level.
yeah. So anything from like from your own experience?
Yes, well, I mean, physically, that was causing me a lot of stress until now. Like now it's different. I couldn't wear anything on my throat or have anything
Oh,
too tight around my throat, or I can even watch a film where happening anything like murders going on the throat. I couldn't watch that. Yeah, I would really like shake from head to toe, like have a repulsive reaction or an anxiety. um yeah, I remember also not using in bed and like not covering myself like below the
Right.
like at the shoulder levels. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's only after doing some work. But yeah, it was funny because if you think about it, especially in winter in Canada, you need to wear a lot of scarves. I had a problem. And I couldn't. And if somebody would be like my mom, would struggle with me. And so if you are a parent, sometimes you don't understand why my kid is reacting like that. And we're like, why is so much stress? And um yeah, it doesn't mean it's necessarily a mental health issue. It could be also ignited from or created, like, or being affiliated with
Hmm.
something
uh-huh.
that out of like of the story, like Teresa
Mhm,
said, like not in this story to timeline, but maybe
mhm.
connected, still connected.
Yes.
Yes, and you did mention, I did want to highlight, we talked about like the before, when you explained, Sydney, so greatly about the connection with the soul and the soul structure. But there's also when we talked about the higher self, the ego, and the soul, the interconnection
Oh,
Yeah,
that sometimes create a lot of, out of lines focus and can initiate. Yeah. And
wow.
so I,
That's a good fifth point. Yeah, absolutely. I forgot about that. Yeah, it actually does. When the three of that aspect, the higher self, the soul, and the ego are in conflict, that's going
yes.
to just make the soul like, I don't know what to do,
yeah, the
especially
person is just like, what's going on?
yeah, especially when they have such strong opinions, if the ego comes across as like, no, don't do that. No, no, no.
But I have to.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's really a very good point. So let's go into some of the cases that we have met. Like we start with possession cases, right? Where the energy of that spirit that you are just walking by came onto you. So what will happen? So like, um basically being possessed or having a spiritual attachment, like how we will refer to it last week.
Yeah,
How
we
would
did
that
that.
impact the mental health?
You know, it makes me think that spiritual attachments are like mold. Like
Oh,
moldy houses when they have toxic mold, and then people are like, I don't know why, but like my body is uncomfortable. I don't sleep well. My mood suddenly sucks, and there's no discernible reason why, and it turns out to be mold.
yeah,
It feels like that, where it's like this tiny thing where you don't really notice it, and then you peel back the curtain, and there it is. Ooh.
yeah, good point. Yeah. So so those spiritual attachments does impact our mood and our maybe sometimes our energy, right? Like, yes, it's a bright sunny day, you don't feel like going out. You don't feel like the energy that comes to you to go do the things and run the errands that you want to run, right? So that is one of the impact. But also very often they started behaving not like themselves. Like a person who may be a vegetarian may start craving for meat, or a person who doesn't smoke may just want to be near smokers, or a person who doesn't take alcohol will actually feel like, I want to give that a shot, I want to try that. Because a lot of times when the spirits that actually do hang around, I would say, at least from what I've observed, a lot of them are hanging around because they have some level of addiction, especially
Mm.
to cigarettes or to alcohol, and they love hanging around people who actually smoke, and they just want to be in the presence of those familiar addiction that they had. I remember at one time, this is when I was in the school of Arthur Findlay College for the psychics in UK. And one of my classmates just that class was about mediumship. So one of my classmates then had a spirit came onto her, and the thing that's different between spirit mediumship and channeling is where the mediumship actually allow the energy of that soul to completely take over your body. So you can actually see the transformation of the young girl becoming like an old man, or somebody thin. Actually, you feel the energy is very big and fat or something. um or I remembered, so in her case, she was just randomly bringing on any souls that wants to speak, right? So she allowed them to take over, and she then transformed into this toothless old man. You can start seeing the wrinkles around the lips, and the first thing that he says, like, I want a cigarette. Like he really wants a cigarette. So these are the souls who have not gone to the light, and it's still taking the time. He's hanging around people who are smoking. So just for those people who are smoking, just sometimes there may be these wandering spirits next to you because they really crave that cigarette. Yeah. So for those possession cases or spiritual attachment cases, there will be such kind of phenomenon that you go, that's not usual to you, especially when it comes to certain moods like depressed, upset, triggers that normally you probably have a good sense of humor, you lost that. Any other things that you think that may have occurred to people who had spiritual attachments?
Those two main things, like that are really telling, is the dip in energy, because when you have an attachment, um it's different from having like a guide or something like that there, because essentially they kind of need to feed off the energy of the living person a little bit in order to stick around. So then you'll kind of feel a little bit more sluggish. And then if you notice a sudden and unexplained change in your urges, that can also be an indicator.
Good point. So we talk about past lives trauma that's impacting our current incarnation. We have come across a lot of that. Just recently, we were working on a case where the mother and daughter didn't get along, and they didn't understand why. They just couldn't get along. They thought it was the stresses of the exam, like maybe the mom was an overachiever, and then the daughter just refusing to kowtow to what the mother wants, and all that. That was that conflict, right? And Annie, I think you were the one who were working on that case. So it turned out that when we were channeling that two soul, the child just kept saying, I want revenge. I want revenge. It's payback. It's payback. And then when we asked the soul, is it, what do you mean it's payback? And he's like, and there was injustice. I was being bullied. Is injustice. All my brothers and sisters, my mother included, I want payback. We're like, whoa, right?
What?
Yeah, so even though the case, we were commissioned to work on the mother, And the guides was like, there's no point healing the mother if you don't heal the child. And so that's when the story came out, that it was like the child just said that I'm here to play my part. I want people. I'm here to be a tough teacher to them. Yeah. And so there was some level of understanding why there was that payback. And then of course, then there was that discussion on like, yes, you can be a tough teacher, but you don't have to exactly make each other want to kill each other. Yeah, it's quite an interesting case. Anything you want to add, because you were the one who were working on that case.
Yes, Annie, tell us.
Yeah. You just reminded me. Yeah, I think while I was channeling like this energy, it was like really, I was surprised myself. It's like it made me realize, that this could happen to all of us actually. Is this just and it made me also look like we all have tough teachers, and made me realize like, okay, being a tough teacher is tough. And it helped me also to accept, yeah, that accept and give them love, because like I said, it's like it's not an easy task and they're doing it. So for myself, I understood like, okay, step away and let them do their purpose, what they're doing. And maybe it, like, for my point of hand is like really help to understand that the mother really wanted to understand, you want your kid to go to be right, to be okay, and to also have success for their exams, for the priorities, like being, but is also how can you love the tough teachers too. Anyway, so I don't know if I understood if I really answered your questions, but what really that impressed me so this case was really made me understand with, beyond words, the relationships that we have. So if you have a chance, look. Oh no, we don't have it. But if we could have maybe a deeper dive about the toughest teachers, because that was really a striking energy, and also revealing energy. So I hope that the mom was able to cope and understand, and maybe understand that love, it has different vibrations and also colors. So yeah.
So the feedback I got today is that the relationship between them is amazing.
Oh,
good.
Yeah, they could go out for dinners together without.
No.
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
Yeah, the family
reaction.
just so pleased with it. Yeah. So the thing was this: the mother too, like, besides having to deal with a daughter who was determined to play her part of being a tough teacher, the daughter also remembers the revenge that she wants to take, right? So she had been treating all her family as enemies, right? So that's the past life thing. So she's not a happy child, right? Because here she is waking up every day thinking about, like, I have to think about how to revenge, right? So that's
subconsciously. Oh
right?
God.
Subconsciously, she's not happy, and as part of revenge, maybe the mother wants me to do well in the exam. I refuse. I refuse to, right? I'm not going to give my enemy what they want, right? And then the mother too has got other healings that she needed to do, which is more than this life, or in that life where she has to be revenged, right? Because she was the bully. She also had another life that caused her to be a bully, because she had a life where she lost her whole family. She lost everything. So then have the anger inside her that she wants to take it back from somebody else. So there was that energy of pain that she carried to that life. And then now in this life, it's all accumulated. All the stories just accumulated that made it so difficult for everybody to even sit down to have a proper conversation. But yet, at the same time, in their soul contract, they all have chosen to be born into the same family. To, I guess, to learn, to resolve, to learn that love can overcome all. But sometimes when the pain is so much, the trauma is so deep, but yet there's no story behind that trauma. It's just so hard because without awareness, how do you heal? Is, like, have you ever had an itch that you cannot scratch because you just do not know what that itch is? That drives, right? It's just that you just keep feeling the itch, but you can't touch it. It's like, oh my God, right?
But the escalation that it creates too, I mean, seriously, and not just the, from the mental health from one person, but the whole family. I mean, that's where.
Yeah, the whole family has no peace. Yeah. And it's so stressful that, it may drive somebody to suicide. It may drive somebody to depression. It may drive, like, one of them, either the child or the mother, say that I'm going to leave home. That's it. It's done. I mean, I think if the mother left home, that's okay. She can still survive. But let's just say the young child decided, like, I'm running away because I can't deal with it, which is also possible. So just imagine, like, in the world of difficult relationships today, how often it is made up of all this dynamics, this trauma that carried on for so many different lifetimes. The stress is just, I just cannot imagine. And having seen you channeled it, I think you felt it more than what words can describe. The energy of that relationship, that pain, that the need to play my part as a tough teacher. It's not easy.
That was very painful. I had to take a break, I remember. It's coming back now, but yeah, and we had, like, thank God we had a lot of help from above and beyond. Because it was really difficult to size. Well, first of all, to understand and peeling off. And it's like mini onion.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you tap, and we were able to tap into that, and it was like mystery unsolved, and I'm so glad about the results that you were able to share with us today. So I'm bingo.
The whole family is just so happy that there's peace restored. Yeah, I can just imagine how happy it is to sit down to have family dinners together without, wanting to throw food at each other or storm off, slam doors, because that happens, right? Yeah.
I do have one question. What about the exams?
It's done. I guess we're not sure what the results will be because the results.
Okay, they're done. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
But the exam is over. Yeah. So
stay tuned.
Part 2.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about curses. Like, when I use the term curses, I think it's a very loose term to say that these are energies that was, I guess, given rather than a natural occurrence. Because like past life thing is a natural occurrence. The soul makeup is a natural occurrence. But like, when you sit down and have a meal and suddenly start crying because we're talking about curses, right? Where people intentionally sending energies to hurt you that cause hallucination, phobias, fear, and all that, right? So those are things that are beyond your control and may come without you knowing. I have personally witnessed a case where I was part of the class, but the teacher had to remove curses. And that was quite interesting because it's a case of bad neighbors. Her neighbors agree with each other, and then instead of resolving it, they started throwing curses at each other.
My
So
goodness.
Yeah, so one neighbor started looking for in the Southeast Asia terms is Bomo, which is the more of the Malay shamans, the
Mm.
Bomos. And then the other neighbor who is an Indian then went to look for their own in their own temple. I have no idea what terminology they call them, but they started throwing curses at each other. And you could see that the person she would feel physically drained, tired. She couldn't walk. There's a lot of phantom pains around her, like she'll feel as if like she's bleeding somewhere, but
Mm.
there's no cuts, nothing.
Mm.
Or like she'll feel like there is a sharp pain in her heart, right? And then there's nothing there at the same time. So when finally to break away from it all, she chose to come to a spiritual teacher at the time when I was attending to learn more about spirituality. And the teacher then had to perform removal of all those curses. So there were nails, barbed wires, uh, implanted maggots, and everything. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that was pretty serious to be able to witness all that. And you can see the energy change when all those things were removed. But it doesn't mean that she was cleared of it all, because she too has also thrown curses at the others. So I would say that never ever get into this route of taking revenge or getting things that you want,
Yeah.
because a lot of people go down this path thinking, they will be able to get what they want, or they will be able to achieve peace by hurting others or by using this type of unnatural way, right? So yeah, I would say never ever delve into resolving things using curses. It's just not good. And
Doesn't it come back to you anyway? It's like black magic.
yeah, it does come back. It does come back. Oh, but there is one case we that I can share about curses. And
Mm.
this one is not because it was a religious curse, I mean, not religious, but like when they went to the shaman to look for it or anything. But this is a curse that she did on the people who hurt her. So I think I shared this case before, where we had a client who thought that she had a spiritual awakening, where the voices just keep like in her dreams, and the voices in her head just keep telling her go back to this country, right? And so she's from a European country, and she then had to not come back, but come to Asia Pacific, because the voices keep saying, go to Asia Pacific, specific country, because you are needed there and you need to be there. She had no relative, no friends in that country at all. So she sold everything um, she had in Europe to move to Asia Pacific, but without knowing what's next, without knowing what can she do, right?
Mhm.
And she was really at the brink of nervous breakdown, because like she thought this is a spiritual awakening, and there is no reason. She couldn't find a reason why these voices keep telling her you need to be in Australia, you need to be in Asia Pacific, you need to be in Asia Pacific. And so when we tapped into the case. It turned out that it was one past life where she was brutally raped and murdered in that past life. And when that happened, when that was occurring, she then thrown a curse at the perpetrators who did that to her. The binding curse means that the guy who did that to her, rape and murdered her, will not be able to journey on, and he's forever stuck on that ground and that land. So it's been many, many, many life after. And this life, she's probably a bit more empathic. this life, she probably is a bit more sensitive to energy. And then she can hear the soul calling out, come back, come back, come back. You need to be back here. So when we went in to the case and talked to the soul, then the soul remembered what happened and then realized that no, this is not a country that she ever wanted to be in, because the memory came flooding back. And that's when the whole story unfolded about how she was brutally raped and murdered. And during the whole situation, she then thrown a curse at these people who caused her the pain. So this soul has been asking for her to come back to free him. So that is an example of a curse, where even though she was the one who cursed him, she also felt the pain in this incarnation. Yeah. So I'm glad to be able to resolve that, then to stop those voices, to stop that pain for the two souls, so that they could make amends and heal from it. So I thought this is a good segue to go and talk about the other points that we brought up, which is about spiritual gift that is turning out to be more like a spiritual curse. Sydney, you're the one who brought that up, so
yeah, I mean, the main thing which I was saying even before we went live was when someone is exploring their sort of their sensitivity to energy or these kinds of spiritual topics and like tuning into that sort of stuff, you know, you might start to have these really ungrounding experiences. And I thought it would be an interesting topic of conversation to talk about, especially with what we do with channeling. You know, sometimes we're connecting to energies that are really far beyond our day-to-day human lives. And I know for me, prior to, you know, us all doing channeling together, during my teens, whenever I felt interested in these sorts of spiritual topics and I would explore it a little bit, I would start to feel really disconnected from my life here right now. And then it would make me feel really uneasy, like, okay, whatever it is I'm doing, it doesn't feel healthy for me. I feel like I don't care about anything anymore. It's like giving me apathy. And it's like hard to like care about the things that I normally care about. And then I would stop for a while. And then I would get curious again. And then I would have to stop again. Because it just felt like really disruptive, and not something that was benefiting my life. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about how sometimes when we are trying to explore these sorts of spiritual gifts, or if we have them, and like, how do you manage that? How do you do it in a way where it's something that can also be a positive for your mental health, your emotional well-being, and not something that's like disruptive, or you feel like there's just like too much new sensation or information and it's just like, well,
you know, like when you brought that up, I was just sharing with you about how like I was feeling anxious when I think about the war and all that. And that's because I'm an empath, right? And for a lot of people who are empathic, but they're not able to discern that emotions is not from them. They're feeling something else, they're sensing something else. It can actually be very confusing.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like very often, like I heard of like people who are a bit more spiritually sensitive, they can't go into a crowded room, or they can't go into a shopping center, or they can't go to any concerts, because there's just all this bombarding emotions, feelings, everything that is all coming to them, because they haven't learned the skill to be able to discern and to say that, okay, this is not mine, this is not mine. Like they feel so real. Like when I think about the war, right? And immediately I'm able to tap into all the other people who are suffering from war. And I could feel the anxiousness, I can feel the sadness and all that. And it is quite real, that it feels very much mine. It feels very much mine. And that's the same for a lot of people, where if they are empathic and they are spiritually sensitive. And if they have not learned the skill to discern, they may think that they're going to depression.
Yeah.
They may think that the anxiety is going on to them with any stories behind it, right? So that's the difficult part, because for a lot of the people with the spiritual gift is like, if you do not know why you're feeling that way because you are able to feel that way, it's very confounding, confusing, and then you think you're going crazy. Like, why am I sad? Why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? Any of you experience that? Because both of you are all very spiritual.
Yeah. When you were saying about the like crowded room stuff, it's funny because like when I was a little kid, I was a really extroverted little kid. And then when I got to around my teens, it was the complete opposite. Like I didn't want to go outside. I don't want to go to crowded malls. I would just feel exhausted by the whole thing. So I definitely relate to that, where there was a period of time where all of the sort of normal stuff felt really difficult, but now it's really no problem at all.
Yeah. Any of that experiences it yourself?
I think you just explain what I can recall, or maybe find the I'm going to say in other words, what do you explain, Teresa, about the anxiety and not being able to sort out the things out or discern? It was my whole teenage as a teenager, and as I grew up, and like even as a young adult, being in relationships in very I had the quote or have the title like, oh, you're the sensitive one, or you're always like um you're very, so I felt like it was very negative, and I didn't know that it was like my gift. I was just like, actually I was fighting against it. I did a lot of meetings to find, I had to go to psychotherapy to do that. And because I was really going nuts. And the more I started to be overwhelmed, I tried to control myself. I was being more overwhelmed, so I didn't go out. At the end, like every breath was just difficult to catch, to carry on. And then the problem is when you start to not knowing what to do with that, I think you can be an open door to other things. So I don't want to even know like if they had unwanted guests, or but I would say if you're going through that now, if you're wondering if you are going nuts, you're feeling a lot of anxiety, is like, first of all, alone, it won't go away. And first of all, well, you take some deep breaths, because you have a tendency to also isolate yourself. You're so overwhelmed, you just don't know what if you're going to snap out or how you're going to react. There's really a chain reaction, um, and somehow like you don't want to hide yourself. So please, if then that's where you start to really linger and suffer. So please, if it's that the case to you, I'm like, from the bottom of my heart, I can feel you now. Don't stay alone and reach out. It doesn't matter who to reach out, okay? It should be a gift, not a burden.
Well put. Yeah.
And I wished I would have known Teresa just like way before. It would have been like gone very smoothly, but but it's okay. So yes, yeah, I have really tears in my eyes. But it was probably meant to be like that. And I'm so glad that today I look back as like, okay, first of all, I'm glad I'm still here. Like, without, I'm being totally transparent with you. If you're feeling overwhelming, you just don't know what your purpose is. Like, wait, okay. So, and because maybe one day you're gonna look at it and it's all gonna make sense. It's all gonna take place because it's a gift. It's a gift.
I will also segue into the other gift that other children may experience, is that they may have the ability to see spirits, see
Yes.
cons, see fairies, see dragons, and they may talk about them because they don't have the ability to use other language, to talk about them as their friend, to talk about them as their imaginary friends. And the parents would probably entertain them for a while until they reach an age where the parents go, stop it. Enough is enough, right? Enough of imaginary friends. It's time for you to grow up and stop talking about this. And how dangerous that is for the child. I've come across a case where the child that was very confident and very happy and talk about how she had all these friends with her, the dragons, the fairies, the unicorns, because she see them, and she's extremely happy with them. And of course, sometimes she'll talk about the other spirits that are the wandering ghosts, right? Wandering souls, and that she will get scared, but then the fairies will come and help her, and the dragons will come and help her. So she felt very safe, right? But as she was growing older, that's when the parents start telling her to stop with this imaginary world. Is not real, but to her it's very real. And to be told that what she's seeing and what she's feeling and what she's experiencing and what she's hearing is not real, she tried her best to shut them down, but it's her gift. So she's just able to tap into something that everybody else can't see. And it really took a beating to her confidence. She became introverted. She has nothing else to say, nothing else to share, because everything that she wants to share about this fascinating world and the friends and the adventures that they've gone on, she can't share them. So she then became introverted, and then she became depressed, and then she didn't want to go to school. And this is actually a message for a lot of parents out there, that sometimes it may not be real to you, but it's very real to your child. You have to, at some point, be able to recognize the difference, like if it is really an overactive imagination, or if this is very real. And if this is very real, then it's time to seek help, to help them discern and make a understanding that they probably have the ability to navigate both worlds. Instead of just immediately shutting them down and tell them that, hey, stop it. We live in the present, we live in the real world, you have exams to do, right? then all your imaginary friends have to go away. Just imagine how difficult. And then, like for example, I was sharing with Sydney that day when she was at my place, and I keep smelling the smoke, right? Because I could smell the war. And I can't turn that gift off. Obviously not, right?
Yeah.
So, or I would be thinking like, okay, my neighbors, like, why are they chain smokers that I could smell them the whole day? But it's not, because I could actually smell gunpowders. I can actually smell very, very intricate smoke smell. And it's not easy to turn it off. So just telling a child to turn off their gift, to stop seeing the fairies, stop seeing the unicorns, stop seeing the wandering spirits who may come and disturb them and say, hey, wake up, I need help. Like the way they do to me. It's not easy. And I just really want the parents to be understanding.
Ooh, I think what's so interesting with what you said is there's this huge theme of discernment with these gifts, in order to find a way to have them be a part of your life in a functional manner, and in a way where it can actually be a benefit to your overall well-being, rather than a detriment. The discernment part is such a big thing. And even in, the smoke situation that we were looking into, you're considering the potential physical factors of like, okay, is it the lingering smell of burnt food? Is it the neighbors? So it's not like we're just always assuming everything is something spiritual, but then we also don't always assume everything's physical. We try to check all of the different potentialities and find out from there. And I think that way we allow the discernment to happen, because we're looking at all of the things that we can possibly think of that could be creating that situation.
Exactly. So I guess you brought up a really good point. I'm sorry, Annie, were you going to add something and I interrupted you?
Oh, I just wanted to say that, I do understand the point of view that, as a parents, you probably think, hopefully my kid is, healthy and there's no mental illnesses behind this. So I get it. I get it. And it could be like maybe confusing you also, but I think it asks also like for parents that maybe don't, I would say, are not really necessarily new age, or like, I don't want to put like necessarily a labeling on it, but if I just try to be maybe a tiny bit open-minded,
Right.
even though that you might not have seen it. It was probably not in the family or something, but you have, but to leave a little bit more space and room and see how, instead, for energetically, how this could help your to be open and for your kid to grow and expand as a person, instead of retracting, trying to, because then I think it's an open door also very often for addictions. And so yeah, there's no like magic wand or like a specific, but it's just like, yeah, it's not always easy
Yeah.
in
You brought
those
up a good
Perfect
days.
answer.
Yeah. No, you brought up a good point, like how easy it is to just take alcohol or smoke or get into drugs to just try and drown out these gifts because they just don't know how to cope with it, right?
Mhm.
I did lighten it by saying that they can see unicorns and dragons and fairies, but they're also more often than not is actually seeing the wandering spirits that could be quite scary,
Yes.
especially they see a spirit uh that just finished an accident, or
Right. Yeah.
or something, right? Some freak
Yeah.
accident or something, and it's just going to freak the child out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
And
it's like the seeing tends to match whatever it is that they're stuck on, which is often something that happened right before they passed, or whatever that isn't the prettiest, when it has a visual form.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if a child could see all that and then they're freaking out and they don't dare to go certain places, and the parents would go, come on, toughen up. You should be able to go anywhere and not be afraid of the dark and stuff like that. It's just so tough on the child. It's just so tough on the child. Yeah. So I guess, before we end today's live, what is it that we can do to help balance a good mental well-being and a spiritual well-being? What are some of the things that do you recommend that a person could adopt?
For me, and with the channeling work that we do, there's been a few things. The discernment between what is mine and what is someone else's has been a really big factor. And that's come from doing a lot of work on my own triggers as well. So if, I'm experiencing a very strong reaction to something, I always want to go in and check, is this something of mine that is reacting to the input, or is it just purely someone else's stuff? And then taking the time to continuously explore and ask that question makes it easier to discern each time. And I think also, especially with the work that we do, and I've noticed this with doing coaching work as well, is my intention is to hold space for whatever issue it is I'm looking into, not to latch onto it and make it like one of my, like something about me. So it's like there is a certain intention for me to keep my own energy out of the picture when I'm working on this kind of stuff. And then the other thing is that whenever I'm doing the channeling work, and the more we go out there with the energies that we're connecting with, like if it's like a being that represents like a star system or something like that, and it's like that is a very different sort of energy to me, a person living my life. When I come out of doing that work, I will do physical things I will cook my dinner or do my laundry or go for a walk, and focus my attention on being present for those activities and enjoying those things. Um, and that has been really important to me as well, in my journey, is coming to really love the physicality of life and to connect with that. And it's like the more like spiritual work I'm doing, the more I want to connect with the physical experience and my own body and things like that.
Good points. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Annie?
I'll follow the same idea of Sydney somehow. If I could talk to myself like 20 to 30 years ago, or even as a child, I think first of all, I would say, don't believe everything your head is saying. First of all, secondly, take a deep breath. But it's not because that you hear Sydney saying like I did some work on myself, but sometimes in the moment you're overwhelmed. You can't do the thing in 1 second of work. Like, is
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah,
work on
don't
my
like
triggers.
exactly.
But I would say just
Exactly.
like
I'll add a point after you're done.
just like I would say, first of all, take a deep breath, okay? And if you could like try to like imagine what you're feeling is not necessarily all of this is not all you. It's not all of yours. Okay. You probably don't know how to step out of it, but it's just like, but if it like just step out if you can. And stepping out, I mean, like take whatever it takes. It could be a cold showers, it could be for me, it was for a long time petting cats. They would bring me back. I don't know, like something to nature's, or even touching the leaves of, going, talking to trees, or you don't have to need to talk to them. But I mean, doing something the physical that helps you to get out of this space here, because this is where the rabbit hole
Yeah.
sometimes is.
Yeah.
And then when you can, like you have a little bit more fresh air, and you were able to overcome this confusing time for a half a second, then you can do something to say, okay, acknowledging, first of all, acknowledging, not escaping, acknowledging what you're living. So what really helped me also was putting words. Okay, instead of just anxiety, I was like trying to say, okay, I'm feeling stress, or I'm feeling frustration, or I'm unhappy, or I am exhausted. And it was helping me to discern with the world. So giving, color, I was able then to step back. And the more I was able to put it into words, or writing it, whatever it is, what you need, or even putting some colors, draw it, find your way, is somehow this is how you get a little bit more detached, and you say, okay, you see a picture. So there's no magic sauce or whatever, but
Yeah.
try it and find your own way.
Yeah. Okay. So I will tell a little story, which is that when I was in my school days, we had this camp that the school would sometimes put on. And at the end of the day, they would give us this like booklet, which was meant to be your daily reflections. And it was like, reflect on the experiences you had today, and like think about like what you learned, or what the experience was like, and think about, like how deep you can deeply process this. And at the time, I was like, this is too soon. I'm still in the whirlwind of the day. Like, I have nothing to process yet. Like, I don't even know how I'm thinking or feeling yet. And so, because this was a compulsory thing, I would just write whatever I thought the teachers wanted me to say, and then I would submit that. But it kind of defeated the point of doing the reflections, right? Because I'm not actually able to even reflect on the experience. So that was a really big reflection actually of that time for me, was that I don't ever want to try and force myself to come up with a way of processing something when I don't actually have it yet. So for me, I think one of the most helpful ways to view a situation when I'm still in it is just, oh, shit happens. Like, I'm not even going to try to come up with like, okay, how is this going to be, like beneficial to me, or where's the lesson in this? And like, if I'm in the moment, if I ask myself that, it's too much. I'm going to be like, there is no lesson in this. This sucks. I fucking hate it. And I think often with painful sensations, right? When we have like difficult thoughts and feelings, they hurt. And with pain, oftentimes our instinctual response is to try and remove it, like figure out a way to make it go away. And sometimes just letting your body naturally process the thoughts and emotions for a little bit, you know, you don't want to try and force the feeling out or try and extend it more than you need to, just sort of like ride it as best you can. And that's what I do for myself until I'm feeling more neutral. Then I'll be like, okay, I have enough space between the experience and myself now to kind of consider, all right, what is the message here? How is this trying to support me? But I'm not going to force myself to answer that question when I'm in the middle of the experience. When I'm in the experience, the only thing I say to myself is like, all right, just ride it out until you can get to neutral. Don't try and force it to do anything. We're just going to ride and not make any important decisions until we're in a more neutral space.
Wow.
One
Both-
more tip.
Yeah.
One more tip. Okay, so it's still in the motion or whatever, it doesn't matter. So just remind yourself that you are not in the car. You're watching the car going by. That was Gelong. How do you call this monk? Gelong Open.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. I can't think of the pronunciation.
Yes, it's
Geelong Tipton.
yes. Thank you. And so you're not in the car. Watch the car go by.
Yeah.
That's very good advice. And I can tell that both of you gave such good advice because it came from your own personal experience. It comes with your own way of riding through this so that you're both here being able to share this amazing experience with everybody. For my part, I would say that, you know, sometimes that when these emotions and these challenges that comes up for your mental health, it is okay to say that I'm not okay. It is okay to acknowledge that I'm not fine. There's no shame in that because, you know, I remembered when I first started studying psychology. At that time when I was studying it, there was a lot of shame and stigma behind it. But now everybody go, oh, I've got a therapist. I'm going for psychotherapist, right? Everybody knows that you actually do need talk therapy or somebody to help shift your perspective and all that, right? But in the cases that we come across, this is where it is most challenging when it is a possession case, where it is a past life trauma case, or if this is a curse, or if this is a gift, and that really, you know, it is not something where people are comfortable talking about in this day and age yet. It's just like when I first started studying psychology, it is not easy to say that I'm having mental challenges. It's not easy to say I've got mental health issues. There's a lot of stigma behind it. I remember that I have friends who actually had anxiety and OCD disorders, right? And they're so afraid of the colleagues finding out. And the colleagues will go, why are you like opening and closing your drawer 20 times? Right? They just wanted to check, right? So there are those days it is difficult to talk about it. So right now, when everybody's comfortable talking about, you know, OCD issues, depression issues, or the need to go visit psychotherapy, right now I'm just saying that it is okay to seek spiritual healing. It should be part of our holistic healing journey. It's something that I'm starting to feel that we should advocate for it. Because having witnessed and watched and experienced and done so many cases where we know that if we were not here to support them and help them, then the pain will carry on for so many more generations, lifetimes, and it's just so painful to watch them having to go through this when they could have just felt that if they're a bit open-minded and just accepted some spiritual healing support and help. So that's all I wanted to say about this whole thing, because help is at hand. You just need to know where to go look for. you're not alone. There are people out here who can support you and understand the journey that you are on. Yeah, so with that, we'll close for tonight.
Ooh.
Another interesting and exciting topic. So next week, I'll come up with another interesting, exciting topic. We are pushing episode 10 already. Next week is episode 9. This is episode 8.
Wow.
I'm just so proud of ourselves for being here consistently every week. So I thank you both so much, and all the other channelers who actually joined us. So till next week, thank you everybody. I'll see you all soon again.